It's me, the Kadoozie, and here we are, another episode of the Kadoozie Kast. And I have Ted Alexandro here with me, and I have to say, I pushed him. I made him come over to my house to do this Kadoozie Kast. He's a very busy man, but I've been wanting to have him on here for a while because, first of all, say hi, Ted. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sue. Thanks for making me come.
I feel like my self-esteem has gotten better with people where I realize now I just kind of like push them, and then they're like, Sue, thanks for making me do that. And I'm like, you're welcome. But no, the reason why I wanted to have you on is because I am fascinated. There are so many famous people and so many meetings that I have and so many people that I meet that just absolutely, these people just absolutely love you.
Oh, wow.
They always bring up your name.
Really?
Yes. And I'm like, I bet you he doesn't even know that.
I don't know that.
So many people. They're like, I fucking love Ted Alexandro.
Oh, thanks.
And so I was like, I have to get Ted on.
It was worthwhile dragging me down.
It was worth it. Well, that's why I wanted you to come. Because I was like, I'm also fascinated because, correct me if I'm wrong, your stand-up is joke-driven, but also it's kind of personality, but it's not like forced personality. Yeah,
I would say so. Yeah, I tend to be a little more understated, but there's definitely a personality, I hope, and a perspective, that's it's strong, but maybe more subtle than some.
Which I respect tremendously because I always say to people, even comics starting out, when they ask me, it's easier to have a big personality. It's more confident and like it takes a lot more work to draw the people into what you do. That's that subtlety.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I always wonder, is your style a decision or is it just you? So is it like a matter of what's harder or or is it just me? Is it? I don't necessarily think I'm trying to do something harder necessarily. I just think I've followed my instincts and my voice, and this is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm saying the result is harder, but I'm not saying that it's an intention.
Right, yeah, maybe the result is harder, yeah, in terms of, comedy club crowds can be maybe, tuned to one vibration, so yeah, if you slow them down, sometimes it can be a bit of a task,
And then to be that strong to pull them out of it is just... Because it's easy for somebody to go up and be boisterous and loud and, kind of run on that. Yeah,
that can... at least kind of put people on the defensive that, all right, this person's in control.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas, for what I do try to do, the thing that is conscious about it is I like a slower vibe in general. I feel it's more intimate. I like silence. I like pauses. I like quiet. I like even looking at the crowd, I feel as though, in that awkwardness sometimes comes an intimacy that over the course of your set, maybe they trust you or they respond to that it's different in some way.
See, now people, I'm since I started doing this podcast, people are fascinated by that because I don't think they always understand how much of a craft that stand-up is.
Yeah, I would say you're right. And I'd say a lot of it is the industry's own fault. Comedy clubs are still stuck in a somewhat antiquated way of marketing comedy, where they have the headshots on the wall and the yuck wacky. Music doesn't market itself that way. Like, come on, we're gonna play a song for you now. It's like music knows how to make something cool. Mm-hmm. Comedy, some segments of it, are figuring out how to market comedy in a cool way, but that is something that still is a pet peeve of mine, the way comedy, the industry at large, and certainly the comedy clubs across America market comedy in this really hokey way that I don't respond to. And I think, as a result, people that come to clubs listen and enter the door with that mindset on, as opposed to what you're talking about, where my style is not really that. But that said, anyone who walks through people are what ultimately come to comedy clubs. So then you just entertain whoever's sitting there.
But you're going against the grain of all of society right now. And as you've grown, you continue to like the silence. And I bet you're getting better at it. And society has gotten faster and faster and faster and less able to take things in because of the technology. So it's like that's such a testament to what you're doing, creating the intimacy. And I think I just had Joe Wilson on last week, and he was talking about how the whole model, the entertainment model, is like going to implode on itself.
Yeah. I mean, I would tend to agree. It's already happening, really. Yeah. I mean, maybe it is a response. That's probably a good way of looking at it. Over the years, like just my visceral response to that kind of energy is to withdraw. So I guess the only way I could withdraw more is to leave the business, but I don't plan on doing that.
No, and I think that the model might fade away a little bit more, which is funny because I'm talking about what you do on stage might be mimicking your career even because, okay, so I started it off by saying that all these like people that are like really famous, and I notice who they follow you on Twitter, and they always say your name, and it always struck me as like they're seeing him.
No, thanks.
So the fact that you have to do it in these comedy clubs with this kind of like crazy rambunctious like pussy.
Yeah.
I mean, really, right?
Yeah. I mean, which none of which I mind. I mean, there's plenty of comics who I love that are exactly like that. But yeah, fitting my own energy into that at times was a challenge. Now not so much because I kind of know who I am and I'm comfortable delivering it. But yeah, as I was coming up and trying to figure it out, sometimes it was a little challenging to do that.
Which is cool because you didn't sell out to it. And also it takes a tremendous amount of strength to stay quiet like that and pull the people to you.
Yeah, I guess. I guess. I mean, it's kind of who I am, and it's I guess I always think I'm sort of a balance between like that introverted, quiet, contemplative type, and the what we have to be, the extroverted
show off
performance. Yeah. So I do have a balance between the two, and I do try to strike that balance on stage.
Which is cool because I think every human being can probably identify with that. Nobody's all anything.
Yeah, I agree, and I think part of the problem is that in the business you're pushed to be that one side. Especially if one thing works, they're going to milk that all the way to the bank if they can.
But in the end, even if they milk it to the bank, you don't win out. Because eventually, I mean, I know plenty of people that have done that, and I have compassion for them. Because I can imagine one night you do something, and everybody thinks it's great, and the next thing you know, it's 10 years later, and everybody wants to be seen for who they really are, and they're mad that they feel trapped almost by the image that they've projected.
That's right. Yeah, and a lot of it maybe is even a product of like where you're at in your life and in your career. If it happens to you when you're 25, you'll probably, anyone, and most of us anyway, would probably just hop on that train and away we go. But, as you get a little older, you're a little more mindful of the bigger picture, and you probably have a larger scope of your life in general. Mm-hmm. It's not just all about, work all the time.
Right. And which is what happened with me with my TV show. I was very lucky to get it so early because I was able to go, this is it. Because some people wait their whole life to get it, and then they go, this is it.
Yeah.
And then they don't have a lot of life left.
That's right. That's right.
So I was really lucky because I was like, I mean, I know it was going to take a lot of work to reinvent myself, but I was like, well, the alternative is to just... I remember going up to the camera guy and I said to him, so tell me something. So I'm going to come here at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to leave at 1 o'clock in the morning in this big like airplane hangar, not see sun or anything. And then 6 months from now, and my TV show is going to go through that little camera out into the world. And 6 months from now, if it's successful, I'm going to be so famous that I won't be able to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I said it to the camera guy because I remember thinking, oh my God, that sounds like the loneliest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Not too many people think of it that way, right? I mean, it's odd. I mean, I guess it comes down to having some measure of control. You can't control everything, but some measure of control over your successes or failures, for that matter. A large part of it, I'm sure you experience is you have to surrender to whatever that result is. But yeah, that can be hard because a lot of times it's whirlwind.
And you can say no. Like I've experienced it now with my one-woman show. I've had in the moment after a huge successful night, people come up, and they're excited. It's not even that they're so necessarily, let's screw her over. It's not even necessarily that. It's like they're excited, they're amped up, let's do this. Because most people, like I said, don't do what you're talking about, the pause and the taking it slow, especially this industry. And I've had to like control my impulses and be like, yes, do I want success from this because I work so hard on it? Yes, but I can wait a little longer.
Yeah, that's something that's tough to learn, because you do want the immediacy of the project succeeding and everything else that goes with that.
Not even the immediacy if you worked on it for a long time.
That's true too.
As soon as they tap into that like desire, you're like, yes, I really want it.
Yeah, right. I've been waiting. Yeah.
And you have to control yourself. But I have my own. This is like I keep everything basic now. I treat my business just like my boyfriend's.
Which is?
Why are you going so fast?
Yeah.
And it works. It's like a total good model to go by.
I always think to myself, when something takes longer than I thought it should have, it's usually better anyway. Whether it's a TV spot or a relationship or whatever it is. If you feel ready, and then it's like another 2 years or 5 years, there's part of you that's like, well, yeah, finally. But then there's another part that, well, yeah, I kind of grew in those 2 years. I've developed, and it doesn't mean as much to me, like, in the right ways. So, yeah, I think, like, time and perspective is now, in my 40s, is a good thing. Which is
what I think, when we break it down back to art, the reason why we're artists is because, and the reason why people like artists, like, I forget who told me, I think it was Fiona Apple, she was on, I don't know if she was on Maron's podcast or something, she said people pay to go see people have pride in themselves. When there's a rock star on stage or something, and I thought, oh yeah, that is true. But for whatever reason, the comedy world has it all. Somehow they tricked us along the way that we were not worthy. It's the craziest thing. I guess they take advantage of the musicians and everything too. But in terms of like what we get paid, which I want to talk to you about, the Comedy Coalition, because you are you got us more money. It's just I've always thought. I said this to Joe. We have the potential, we have earning potential, like, beyond crazy. Like, even if you just look at Jay Leno, like, he doesn't even do movies or anything. He just has his TV show and he goes out and does stand-up and he doesn't even have to touch his TV money because he makes enough money from his stand-up.
Yeah.
So you couple that with movies and books and everything else, if you wanted to do that, our earning potential is far greater than pretty much any other entertainer.
Yeah, well, I guess the fact that we're kind of standalone artists without, an entourage or other musicians or whatever, just we're doing it ourselves. Yeah, definitely. But I guess it's like everything else. Like it's really the high crazy end, and then like the make a living types, and then like the newbies that a lot of who are not getting paid at all. So there's like. Just like the rest of society, I guess there's this crazy jump.
Yeah, the 1%.
Yeah, like is Jay Leno that much better than the rest of us?
No, you mean in terms of stand-up?
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying in terms of like the comedy clubs and everything, they somehow tricked us that we don't deserve the money, or something's crazy about it.
It's not even a trick so much as it's just business, right? And the worker is not going to upset the apple cart when they're getting A, any money, or B, they have a job. Especially for us, if we get in the door at a club, we're so happy. Again, after like years of toiling, right? We finally get in. Now I'm in this club. Now I'm in that club. There's so few people. All my favorites, my heroes play that club. I'm just happy to be here.
And it might not even be based on your talent. It might be based on how easily you are manipulated.
Sure. Yeah.
But here we are thinking, oh my God, they like me.
It's funny. My first year at the comic strip, I didn't even know, after I got passed, I didn't even know that we got paid. There were a year of my checks that I never picked. This was back when we got cash, actually. That I never picked up. I don't know who was getting it.
Did you ever get it?
I never got it because like a year went by and I was like, I was doing like a Saturday night or something, and I'm walking out, and like one of the veteran guys says to me like, "Oh, aren't you gonna get your money?" And I'm like, "Money?" He's like, "Yeah, just sign it." Like I'm telling you, like a year went by. That's how.
People, are you listening? Are you listening?
That's how like dumb I was.
It's not even like McDonald's. McDonald's, they give you a check.
That's how dumb I was.
You weren't dumb. You were just happy to do, and you were happy to do
Yeah,
work.
yeah. I mean, I was naive in that. Again, I was thrilled to pass at the club, and nobody ever told. Most of the sets I was doing, almost all of the sets around the city at that point, were unpaid. So I just thought, okay, now I'm unpaid at one of the top clubs. So,
and how much do people like? People don't know that comics don't get paid. People that go to comedy clubs and pay. How much is it now? $50 a person to go out to a comedy
at least,
show?
You're not getting out of there without paying $50 minimum.
So it's like, and it is true. If you stick up for yourself, you don't work there anymore. It's the truth. I can tell you 5 stories of every single club where I stuck up for myself, and I don't work there anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because the fear used to be, oh, don't say anything, don't say anything. And now I'm like, well, what are they going to do? I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care. It's the truth. There's no, I can tell you exact examples where somebody took advantage of me with money, and I've said, don't take advantage of me with money, never work there again. Mm-hmm. Now the guy talked sexually to me. I told him, don't talk sexually to me, never work there again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not even like you're asking...
And that's you're probably the exception, Not enough folks do that. And getting back to your original point, that's why it stays the way it does, right? If everybody did that, or enough people did that, or enough people did it in unison, then as we did.
Which brings it to the Comedy Coalition, because you tried, and it was just so... I mean, because I guess it's years and years and years of a certain way of things going. You did get us more money. We used to get 75, and now...
No, we used to get 50 going into like around 2000.
50 on the weekends.
50 on the weekends.
$50 a spot on the weekends, you guys. We'd do 25 minutes, almost a half hour.
That's right.
For $50. $50. And we had to do like 5 spots a night, so we had to take cabs in between there to get there on time. So
That's right.
We're talking 30.
Yeah.
Really?
More or less, yeah. And then, so it would go 50, and then the first bump went to, I think, 60, 65. Thereabouts. Then
but this wasn't with the coalition. This was just, they gave us a bump, right?
This was when I started a petition. I wrote a petition saying, we the undersigned are asking for a raise commensurate with the revenue that we generate, blah, blah, blah. And I got about 85 comics in New York to sign it, which in itself was hell, just like going around to the clubs and getting people's signatures. And
you were risking them telling you, well, there's 2 sides to that. You were risking them telling you you can't work for us anymore, but you were also getting a little bit of extra power because they were scared of you, so there was a fine line between the two of those, right?
I guess. I mean, this was at a point where I was only about, I would say, 8 years in. Mm-hmm. It was less than 10. And so it wasn't like I was this, fixture on the New York scene by any means. I was kind of working a couple clubs and... but I did kind of recruit more veteran guys and girls to put their names at the top as well, whether it was Geraldo, Attell, Judy Gold, people like this to sign so that I wasn't up there alone, Right. So then I wound up getting close to 100 comics to sign it, and it went from 50 to about 60, 65. Then a few years later, Russ Maneve calls me and says, hey, Ted, how would you like to revisit the pay issue? And I said, I would not like to revisit the pay issue because I was so fried from the few years before. But then he was so persistent. He's like, come on, Ted, let's do this. And I saw how adamant he was. Not immediately, but pretty soon thereafter, I was like, I'm in, because it's kind of in me to, justice. And especially if, I'm being screwed and a group of people that I'm with is being screwed. I can't kind of sit by idly. So when Russ stayed on me, then...
You're not even being screwed. It's physically tolling on you. It's the amount of work that goes into doing stand-up compared to what they pay us is there's such a discrepancy that it's insane.
It's violent in a way. It's a form of violence.
It is a form of violence. Yeah. Ted, the fact that I can't work in a club because I told a guy not to talk to me sexually...
Right.
Is beyond comprehension. I was in between spots. He called me downstairs. He said, Sue, come here. And I thought he was going to talk to me about business.
Right.
And he started talking to me about sex and his sex problem and his sex addiction. And I was like, I waited. I held myself together. I went back on stage. And the next day I was so mad.
You had to go on stage after?
Yes, I still had to go on stage. I was at work. And I said, please don't ever do that to me again. It was a very nice email. Yeah. Never again.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
so it is violent.
It's abusive. It's illegal. Is really what it is, right? It's illegal. There's laws against that
about the sexual harassment. And
sure.
But the truth of the matter is because I'm only one person. Mm-hmm. I'm like, am I going to go spend time in a legal battle, or
Right.
am I going to
Right.
do my one-woman show, become successful that way, and keep saying it over and over in the same voice that this is what happened to me? Because
Sure.
they're always so quick to say, like, oh, she's a girl, she's complaining, she's making that up, she's this, she's that. It's very quick to, you stick up to that, too. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep, it's a fact.
Right.
People are like, Sue, you're hilarious. Why? And they're starting to see it on Twitter and everything. They're like, how come you don't work there? How come you don't do that? All of it. And I'm like, because I stuck up for myself. In just such a way that it's not even like I went above and beyond asking for extra.
Right.
I just asked not to be abused.
It's astounding, right? Yeah.
So go ahead. You were going to say, so it's violent?
Yeah. So essentially, when Russ asked me, I came around and said, yeah, let's do this. And then other folks like Tom Shalhoub, Buddy Bolton, yourself, all the comics that kind of came along and said, and it wound up being hundreds this time, when this was, I guess, about 2005, 2006. So strength in numbers, and it was very gratifying to see everyone from the top guys on down.
And Geraldo was there. He was very vocal.
Geraldo was great.
Geraldo
Colin
was awesome.
Quinn.
Yeah, Colin too.
Yeah. David Tell. All, folks that it was important that we had there. And then on down to just as important, the open micers, because we talked about, well, first of all, this is going to benefit them because they're going to come into a pay scale that's a little more, fair. And then secondly, if we do decide to strike or do something like that, we're going to need their support.
Because we don't want them being scabs.
Yeah, just
as my dad used to call them.
That's right, yeah. So it wound up, I think, being a very good thing for the comedy community in New York. And, I mean, it was crazy. Some of the meetings were crazy and funny. All of the things you would expect from a room full of 100 or 200 comedians.
And you had so many of, like, the I'd like to say the ones that live on the dark side.
Yeah.
That would get in the way. And you're like, really? You just get in the way? I remember Al Martin called me and told me some story or something about somebody who said something about me, and I'm like, that has nothing to do with what went on.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? That's so
right.
childish.
Exactly.
And we're all trying to just get more money. Nobody's trying to get...
Yeah. So, you did have people like that. I guess there was the introduction of possibly unionizing, but then that was shot down because of, people... I guess the nature of what we do is so freelance. People didn't want to get into that. But ultimately, we got another raise to somewhere between $75 and $85 for the weekends, and I think like $25 to $30 during the week. So to me, incremental progress is still to be celebrated, especially when it's done as a group. It's frustrating also because I think we asked for 100, which comics gave us when comics came into, they were giving 100 on the weekends right out of the gate.
And $100 isn't even
still
crazy.
Isn't. Right, exactly. It's still, I mean, that's more fitting.
If you have two people paying like $50 a person just to come, and there's only like 4 comics on the show.
That's right.
Plus an MC.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know if logically the world understands.
The simple math of it, is absurd. If one couple is paying 100 or north of that, and you're paying comics $75 or $85, it's absurd. It still bothers me. Who knows if something will happen again. I mean, I'm always of the mindset that, I think these things kind of come out of a group, group mentality. It's not, I'm not going to spearhead something again. If it comes out of a group mentality, then I'll probably participate. But I mean, I'm as proud of that and our the work that we did, as the New York Comedy Coalition, as I am of anything else in my career, because I felt pride as a comedian that we did this together. We
shows you how oppressed we are too. That $10, $15, $20 was something that we had to work that hard for and to be that proud of.
Yeah, and you know what? By the same token, I say shame on us because, all we did was ask as a group, and both times they gave it to us. So maybe we should be asking every year or every 2 years, but we're not.
We have to do it as a group, though, because if you do it as an individual, you lose your work.
That's true too. Yeah, and I did suffer some consequences after my efforts.
You did.
Yeah. Yeah, certain clubs were not booking me for a while, Water under the bridge now, but there was periods of time where, I wasn't, all of a sudden, I was not welcome at certain clubs.
It's just an abusive relationship. That's all it breaks down to. Forget all the emotion, forget everything about it. It's just, that's an abusive relationship. If you say something about the bad treatment that you're getting, you will be hurt more.
That's right, yeah.
And then we're supposed to have some success underneath all that.
Well, the beauty of comedy to me is that, there's not one path, If this club isn't booking you, fine, goodbye to you. If this, whatever it is, this television show is not, you can't get booked on that, on to the next. And there's plenty of ways to find your path, so.
And we're lucky now because, like I said, the model is, I was talking to this guy, I'm fascinated, and I'm totally going towards, like, branding myself and doing it more in a business as opposed to just through the entertainment world. I'm educating myself on how to do that so that I can grow my own business that way. And I was talking to this guy yesterday. He's like, "So I never saw anything like." And this is the second guy. Another guy was a guy who runs Wagner's ski line. Big, huge, successful businessman, south of France. Told me he'd never seen anything like Hollywood in his entire life.
Meaning the dysfunction of the model?
And the whole setup of how everybody takes a percentage and the whole thing. He's like, nobody does anything and they're taking percentages. So when he told me that, I was like, oh, so there is another way to do business. And then the guy yesterday, he said, Sue, they're just bullshitting all over the place and they don't tell the clients about the deals and they don't let the clients make the decisions. And I know that's happened to me. And I thought, but then I said to him, but it's starting to break. Because Louis paved the way somewhat with that.
That's right. I mean, what he did was very revolutionary and a sign of the times, And
he didn't even know what was going to happen, and he did it, and he's like, "Oh, I made $1 million." But it's like such a sign, and this is what everybody loves: these stories of like the oppressed all of a sudden just moving a chink in the armor, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, it's like the little guy, fighting back against the establishment, the ruling class, the gatekeepers, whatever it is. Like, what Louis did. And I think that's why so many people respond to him. I mean, first, that he's a remarkable comedian and has been doing it for, close to 30 years. But on top of which, he's taken risks on the business side, and he's smart, so...
Well, he's smart because he took the ego out of it. The only way that they can get you, the only way people can get you with a weakness is if the weakness is inside of you. So if you have some sort of fear or ego or something, they're going to get you with the puffing you up, and you need this, and you need that, and you need this money, and you need... to have this, when I had my TV show, they would all say, you need a TV, you need a plane, you need a boat, you need this, you need that. And inside I was like, I don't want any of that.
Wow.
But I was so scared. It would just come at me so much that they would say all the stuff that I would need. And then I found myself, like, even when I just did my show in LA, this guy from New York Magazine, Vulture, the online magazine, he called me and he's like, Sue, I'm doing an article about the 90s and the big sitcom and all the deals. Will you talk to me? And I talked to him for a good hour, and I laid it out for him. I said, yes, somebody got a $500,000 deal, but they had been doing stand-up for however many years before that. So $500,000, and you get taxed at the same rate as if you make $500,000 every year. So that was 55%. So you cut $500,000 into, what, 250, 220, you take 35% off of the $500,000 too, not off the 250. No.
You mean for the agent and the manager?
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember if it comes off the top or if it comes off after taxes. I think it comes off the top.
Off the top,
yeah. It's off. All right, so they take 35% off the $500,000, then you get taxed 55% off of that. Yeah, you can write off what you pay the agents or whatever, but that ends up coming out to what, $100,000 something, right? And then you don't get another deal.
Yeah.
And you hadn't made any money, so you have all these bills and everything. You might as well talk about making $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
For like 6 years. And he was like, oh my God, I never heard anybody break it down like that for me.
That's right. And that's when you essentially win the lottery, right? That 1 year with the big thing. But the next year maybe you're making, 60.
And also if you don't get anything out of that big deal, then you're way behind because now you're like, oh, you had a deal and you didn't do anything. Meanwhile, you have the same talent. And he had never heard anybody just break it down like that. And he was like, Sue, thank you for talking. He loved it because I wasn't emotional. I just told him the truth.
Right.
So there is something about us educating ourselves and not being such victims to...
Yeah, it's important. It's definitely important. Yeah, and I think, like, for me, the approach is also I think you have to be clear about what your goals are. If you want a boat and a TV and all that, a TV show and all of the things that come with that, that's fine. But just be clear about what you want,
But even Louis has a boat, but he didn't do it for the boat.
That's right.
That's the difference.
That's right.
Because what he did was he took whatever it was, $200,000, whatever FX gave him.
Yeah.
He said, give me this much money, I'm going to do everything myself.
Yeah, I was on tour with him when it happened.
You were?
I was touring with Louis. We were in Austin, and we were at a barbecue place, and I remember him telling me FX is going to give me a check for, I think it was $250,000 to make whatever number of episodes. Maybe it was even, I don't even know, it was a pilot or the first slate of episodes. But he said, but they don't even ask to see a script.
No notes, no nothing.
Yeah, just deliver the show. So he said, I think I'm gonna go with them. I was like, it sounds like a good deal.
But even as you're telling me, and so then it becomes like we have to trust ourselves and we have to be responsible. So you have to give up all that, somebody's going to discover me, somebody's going to be the one to take care of me. And once you let go of that and you start realizing, and then really, because instead of asking people who are I call them living in the dark, just greedy, trying to look for a quick buck, instead of asking them to respect you.
Right.
I found that if I pull back and I say, well, why don't I just do it?
That's it.
And why don't I be responsible? And Louis works really hard. He does everything.
Yes.
But working hard to me makes me feel better about myself. Then I used to lie in my apartment in LA and they would send me gift baskets and I'd be like, I don't want another fucking loofah. I want a job.
Right.
They sent me so many loofah baskets. I'm like, I don't want it. I want to work. It was
who was sending you the loofah?
all the managers and the agents and everything. Every time my doorbell would ring and there'd be gift baskets and I'm like, but I didn't even know that I couldn't want that.
Yeah, right. Isn't that funny too? You don't know the alternative, or you don't know. Yeah, that's such an important thing, and again, I think it's a product of experience and moving along in your career and your life. There's just no way that, not no way, but it's hard to know those things in your 20s or in your 30s. Or it's hard to say even when wisdom comes to you, right? But for me, in recent years, and I think the Coalition was part of it for me, ways that I step outside of the business, even though that's, in some ways, that's really stepping more into the business, but ways that I step out of that mindset or that paradigm of how things are done are always that things that lead to the most interesting experiences, the most interesting relationships, and when I grow,
And the most gratifying, right?
Without a doubt.
Everybody's you could tell me I'm awesome or funny a million gazillion times. I'm like, whatever, it's subjective. I don't even care that much. You could tell me you don't like me and I don't even care that much. Mm-hmm. What I love is when I have a human experience where I overcome some sort of fear that's in my head that I've manifested. The same thing with the club owners, that I don't work at the clubs. Mm-hmm. Or I don't do certain things. I used to be there would be this unspoken, which is what they say, they can only abuse you in the dark. There would be this unspoken, don't say it or you'll never do the show. Mm-hmm. Don't say something bad or you'll never work the club. And one day it just hit me and I go, I don't do the show or work the club anyways. And it's been 10 years. Isn't
that funny? Yeah. Right.
It was so freeing. I was well, what am I doing to myself? And it's just such I just realized so much negativity. And once I freed myself of all that fear and everything, I'm it's so much nicer to just be logical about it and be and to have confidence in myself and to be able to be I know how funny Al Martin told me.
Sure.
He said, Sue, you kill more consistently than most of any comic I have in my club, but I don't want to tell you that because your head will get too big. I was like, oh, he sounds like my boyfriends that used to tell me you don't know how hot you are.
Yeah, we'll take it, right? Yeah.
I used to be oh, that's good because I don't want to be too uppity.
Yeah.
But no, it's well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I get paid equally for the fact that I can consistently do my job, which is to show up at your club and make people laugh?
That's right. Yeah, we deserve, what our contribution to the business is, right? And I mean, it's astounding that it's a comedy club, and they're marketing, our names are in the advertisements, right? It's not just because it's a room with a microphone, it's because we're there.
And then they always try to somehow take it off. You have to watch them all the time. If you do a door deal, you got to watch out because they clip the money. And it's people don't understand that all that goes into the business side of it too. I mean, most places have contracts. But even if you have a contract in the business world, I know they clip off the door. They say there was less people. They manipulate the show so the more people go to the show that you didn't have the door deal with, or what. It's always something.
Some kind of game. Yeah.
Yes.
But that said, I think like the beauty of it is that we start to realize our power and also the things that make us happy. You know, whether it's you doing your one-woman show or Louis doing his show. You know, like I did a web series that I'm pitching now. So like when you,
which I want to talk to you about. Yeah.
So like when you do those things that come organically from you. Again, like what we were saying before, I think that's what empowers you, because you're doing it purely for the right reasons. You know, it's something that's coming out of your artistic expression, not with any kind of conniving thing of like, how can I, monetize this, and how can I? What's my strategy? You know, you're just doing work that you love, and then usually the next step kind of unfolds. Right,
but it would be nice if we could just work at the clubs and get paid.
That would be nice too.
And be able to create. I mean, it's just such like the oppressed we have to go up against such like stand up for ourselves so much that we do come out with something like this, which is nice that we have the strength, but everybody doesn't have the strength to do that. There's a lot of comics and people who can't stand up to it.
Agreed. Yeah, and one thing that I think about sometimes, like Russ and I have talked about, when you think about in the, I guess it's been maybe 7 or 8 years now since the coalition, and even longer since that first petition that we did. We made comedians millions of dollars in that, whatever it's been, 7, 8, 9 year period. We put millions of dollars into comedians' pockets just by standing up, doing a petition, doing the coalition, getting people in a room. So, again, like, that to me is as satisfying that I had a part in that. Millions of dollars, to my colleagues and to our industry, $10 at a time.
So what?
But still, right? Yeah.
Yes, and there is something to be said that and the model is the model. For whatever reason, years and years and years, because I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about, like say a business, everything's so ahead of itself. Like, say there's a business that makes bombs that causes cancer or something. You're never going to get them to just stop it, because then the guy who opened it dies, and then somebody gets the job, and then next thing you know, they're just having a job. They're not even thinking about what they're doing to the environment, and that's what happens. Everybody just starts getting all caught up. So to stay in the negativity and the devastation of like, oh, we don't get paid enough, and it's too much.
Yeah.
There's something more powerful about going to the side, getting successful, and then using Billie Jean King. Did you ever see that documentary?
Maybe.
You got to watch Billie Jean King's documentary.
I mean, I love her. Was it on HBO?
It was on HBO.
I may have seen it.
She literally, she
started her own women's tennis association, right?
But there was a guy who was so adamant and stuck up to her and got in her way, and all she wanted was for them to get paid.
Equal pay, right?
Yes, or it was only it was not. I mean, what she was asking for again was, and so then that guy Billy Riggs or whatever Bobby Riggs, he started taunting her.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm not doing it because it will disrespect everything that I'm trying to do. And then there was an Australian woman or a woman from Sydney that...
Margaret Court, maybe?
Do you remember? She said, I'll play him. And then Bobby was like...
and he beat her, but then Billie Jean said, all right, now...
Well, I remember Billie didn't even yell at her. Because you'd think, here she is working and this woman doesn't even care. And she didn't even yell at the woman. She just said, you have to win. And I was like, the grace...
Yes.
She didn't get into the dark with everybody. She just stayed in the light. She said, you have to win. And then the woman didn't win. And then Billy was like, all right, now she forced my hand. Now I have to do something I didn't want to do.
Yes.
She didn't complain. She gets on there and she sees the spectacle. She sees how crazy it is. She sees how much money they're making. And all of a sudden she realizes her power.
It's beautiful.
And the guy who stood in her way back in the beginning was in the box, the announcer's box. She sat in her locker room and she said, listen, I'm not going out there unless he gets out of the box.
Ha.
And then when she went to go play Bobby Riggs, her first initial thing was to attack. And when she got on the tennis court, she said, no, I changed my
strategy.
And she said, I made him run and run and run. And I was like, oh my God, that's the key to life. Because if she went aggressive to him, then she would have fed in. And it's so many times she had to not feed into the aggressive negativity and stay graceful. She could have done it with the woman who said she would play him. And she didn't. She stayed on the up and up.
You know, I think that's such an interesting analogy, too, because don't you feel as though, like, the typical rhythm that rules any field, whether it's entertainment or Wall Street or business in general, corporate mentality, is that male, aggressive, in-your-face, attack kind of energy. Mm-hmm. Artists tend not to have that energy. I think, would it be fair to say women tend not to have?
No, we tend to not to. So a lot of times women will adapt it so that they can play in the game. They become like men so that they can be part of the game. I definitely believe that.
So I find it, again, I find it baffling that society at large puts up with this paradigm that doesn't really fit. Like, more than half the population is female, right? Then you throw in your artists, you throw in your people that are just not of that mindset. Clearly, more than 50% don't ascribe to that way of dealing, and yet that's the prevailing way of doing business, and you know, that model of competition and winning. And
because the only way to stand up to it is to be strong and soft. Mm-hmm. And so for people to figure out, a lot of people don't talk. I talked to Kathleen Turner. She was telling me about how over 50% of the people who vote.
I saw her recently at Taylor Branch was doing a reading of his book about Martin Luther King at, I forget where it was, on Fifth Avenue. But anyway, I saw Kathleen.
She's with a loud voice and the whole thing, right?
She's great.
But she's telling me that over 50% of the voting people who vote are women.
There you go.
And I said to her, "Isn't that funny? Then why don't we have more power?"
Why haven't we had one female president?
And you know what she said to me? Oh, I don't know. Because there is but I think if people start talking, and that's what I was going to say to you too, there is something about breaking the isolation and the fear and people actually coming together and not being gross and knocking each other down. Because I saw Billie Jean King reading, and I raised my hand and I told her how I interpreted her documentary, and her face lit up and she was like, "I never even thought of it that way. What's your name? Stand up." And she introduced me to everybody, and I was like, and like I told you, like I'm listening to everybody say Ted Alexandro, Ted Alexandro, I love Ted Alexandro. I'm like, Ted probably doesn't even know.
Thank you.
So it was so amazing to see this woman because when you're doing it, you don't have a perspective. So there's something about breaking the isolation and people actually really coming together, because it is crazy. Why do we have more than 50% of the voting public is women, and we're getting beat up by aggressive guys that are like screaming, yelling, because that's what it is. If you're a kind person, you don't want to do that, so you almost don't do anything.
Sure.
And they take advantage of that.
Or you walk away from it and say, that's not for me.
They say, "Oh, Mr. Holier than thou, we'll deal with he has morals, we'll manipulate that, we'll make him feel bad." Because nobody teaches you how to have morals and still, which is what my whole one-woman show is about. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's about being kind, and sometimes being kind is sticking up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how people are reacting to it, because nobody's ever really taught we hear about people in red robes and everything, like sitting in a room and
meditating,
and you don't need money and this and that. And it's like, for me, I'm like, yes, you do need money, and you need money so that you can help further whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to come in greed. But I think we all bristle from that. So the bullies win is pretty much what happens.
Yeah. But I mean, we're seeing evidence around the world of people pushing back. Millions in the streets in Brazil. Mm-hmm. Because I think it started because of a 10-cent bus fare hike. Mm-hmm. But that's not what gets 10 million. I mean, millions of people into the streets. That's just the spark,
right?
And the fact that the Olympics are coming there, and they're kind of pushing poor people out of homes and whatnot. We saw it in Turkey, where there was a park. It started with a park where they were going to knock down trees and build a shopping mall. Paved paradise. Mm-hmm. And then the people got into the streets, millions of people in Turkey. So we saw it here with Occupy Wall Street. So, there's people around the world, I think, who are kind of saying, on the macro level, we've had enough of this way of interacting, where kind of chipping away at the working class.
Well, the Kickstarter, I raised the money all by myself for my Kickstarter to do my show, and no one had even seen it. They just liked what I was talking about. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Look what I just did.
That's another great thing, right? To go right to the people who are fans of yours. And
I treat them with respect, and I'm kind to them, and I remember everything they did, and I make sure that they get everything that they were promised. And it's like, oh, I used to have 5 people working for me that were probably doing drugs and drinking and being disgusting, and I was waiting for them to do it. And I'm like, am I out of my mind?
Isn't it funny? Yeah, you're exactly right.
And so it's like, well, why did they give me all the TV deals? Because I used to kill in the meetings, and because I'm hilarious and I have a hopeful way of looking at the world, and it's simple as that. Like, and now couple that with me being able to take care of myself personally.
Sure.
Then it's like, well, what are you going to do now? Like, I don't care. You don't let me work in the comedy clubs. What? I don't care. So now what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Take that off the table.
Right.
Take all that stuff that you used to knock me down and manipulate me with, and what are you going to do now? Which I want to talk to you before we run out of time. I want to know about your web series because I'm psyched.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, it was kind of, similar to what you're talking about. This idea that myself and my writing partner, Hollis James, had called Teacher's Lounge, because I was an elementary school music teacher for 5 years. When I first got out of college, I was doing comedy at night, and I was teaching elementary school music, kindergarten through 5th grade, in a couple of schools in New York City. And were you funny when you did it? Is that what caused you to kind of do stand-up too? No, I mean, I wasn't really, I don't think I was very funny as a teacher. I was pretty, I'm the type that, like, when I have a task, I'm focused on the task, so, I mean, I would have fun and stuff, but, I think I was kind of a serious teacher for the most part. So I just had all these experiences from teaching that, and just that kind of vehicle I thought would be funny for a show, and I've had this idea for a while, so we decided to write Teacher's Lounge. So initially we wrote it for the web. We wrote 8 episodes, and we shot 4. The 4 that we shot were with, basically the idea is that I'm the music teacher, my buddy's the janitor, we're always just hanging out in the Teacher's Lounge. Other comedians come in playing faculty, so we got Lewis Black as the principal. Oh my God, awesome. Judy Gold as the gym teacher. Oh, hilarious. She knocked it out of the park. Hilarious! She was great. Judah Friedlander is the computer science teacher. Oh, wow. Musician Ted Leo played himself for an episode. And then Janine Garofalo makes the public address announcements that start every episode. So you got big people to do that. See what I'm talking about, Ted? This is what I hear when I'm on the streets. These people are like, I love Ted Alexandro. And then all of a sudden you go, can you do this? And everybody's like, yeah. And you're like, what? It's like almost not knowing our own power. Yeah, you're right, because it was a realization, like, as I called Janine or as I reached out to Lou. I mean, I knew Lewis a little better than some of the other folks, but as I reached out to them, and I'm sure you've had the same experience, when people say yes to you, it's like, oh, wow, this person said yes, Lewis, Janine, Judy, all these people. So, yeah, it was very exciting. And so then what happened was we said, well, this has potential as a television idea. So then, I started working with the new manager. So now, just this week, we started pitching it around to various, Comedy Central, IFC. So we had 2 meetings this week. We have a couple coming up, and things are going well. So I don't know where it's going to land, but things are in motion that hopefully it's going to land somewhere. A pilot, not hopefully. Yeah, I'm telling you right now. Thank you. I feel it. I do. I feel excited. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I say to myself, like, this is a good idea, people would be silly not to take a shot on this. But how cool is it? You went back to your own self, you pulled in, and then you decided, let me do... Shot it myself, wrote it with my writing partner that we've been doing stuff. We went to college together. In a sense, he's really responsible for me being a comedian, because when I went to Queens College, I auditioned for the sketch comedy show, and he's the guy who created it. And he cast me, and then I submitted a couple of things that I had written, and he put it in the show. So then, when we graduated, we started doing a 2-man act. That's how I got into comedy. We went around to the clubs as a 2-man, Ted and Hollis. And so that was how I started in comedy, because my friend, cast me in a show. Ted, I really feel like I'm going to cry. So it's so awesome. It's full circle, But and also, there is something about, just pulling in and being like, I'm not going to do the negativity. Right. And also, like I said, the only way they can get you is if you have a weakness. So whatever weakness that is, it's like with war. They sent the weapons over to Iraq and everything, and now they're getting us with the own weapons that we gave them with. Right. It's like the same idea personally. That's right. If you just said, oh, forget it. Not even getting mad. You get mad for a little while, and then you're like, it's not even worth it to be mad. Had enough, right? Let me just try this.
You know, let me just see what happens. And then all of a sudden you see your own power, which I saw with Billie Jean King. Her face lit. She's a human being. Everybody's a human being. Everybody wants to be seen.
Sure.
Everybody wants to be acknowledged. And the only way you can be seen and acknowledged is if someone else sees you in a pure way. So you're like, you pulled in on yourself, and you, like, those are huge. So then all the TV people take notice. It's like, you value yourself, and then you present yourself in a valuable way, and then they take notice. Instead of you running around doing sets or doing some festival where they're charging people or screwing people over or whatever, you just went.
Yeah, rather than saying to them, like, what do you see me doing? Putting myself at their mercy. I went out and shot it, wrote it with my best friend, you know, who I've been doing stuff with forever. So now, in essence, it's the same thing that, like, drew me to starting in comedy with my buddy was, you know, you're sharing the experience with somebody. So, meanwhile, like 15 years went by in between, but now here we are again together. We wrote a show, and we're pitching it together, and it just feels right, and great people attached, and
when it gets picked up, you're going to work on it. You're going to be in charge of it. You're not going to just be like, they're not going to be like, oh, Ted, we're going to recast you.
Right.
Which is what they do. Sometimes they cast you in your own TV show, and then they're like, oh, we have to recast you. It happened to, I don't know who it happened to, somebody.
Well, Ray Romano got, not his own show, but he got kicked out of News Radio, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then he got his own show
right.
after.
But there is something beautiful about the humility of being like, hey, it's like humility, but it's also realizing the unbelievable power you have.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at our root, we're creators, you know, so we're gonna keep creating stuff, you know, and when it comes from that pure place of, you know, for me, I try to be mindful of, like, where is it coming from, and for this, it was really coming from that pure place of, I really want to express this, I'm excited about this is part of my past, and it's a way for me to work with colleagues and just have a lot of fun, you know.
But you took the human sabotage out of it.
I did, yeah.
Because that's what it's like. I'm finding, like, most people have talent in one way or another or something, whatever it is that they do. But it's the human sabotage that gets in the way of the talent ever surfacing purely. You
mean the sabotage in terms of, like, putting yourself at the mercy of...
Whatever it was along the way, yes. Whatever it was that you... Some sort of fear, whatever came up, whatever human, like, or not being able to assert yourself, like we were talking about, assert yourself in a healthy way, because otherwise we only thought that you could do the aggressive bully thing.
Yeah, well, again, that's a good point, too, because myself, I tend to be a little more reserved. I'm not as kind of in your face. So sometimes over the years I would question myself in that regard. Like, am I cut out for this? I'm not really the tap dance showy type. You know, is there a place for me in the business if I don't, you know, have that type of aggressive energy? So
I think that culturally, I think it's a phenomenon, Ted. I swear to God that guys are coming to terms with that.
Sure.
I'm shocked. There's so many guys that are so sensitive that because I've softened, they're softening, and I used to get scared by it if a guy was sensitive. I would be like, ugh. I just didn't even know what to do because I hadn't grown up around it or anything.
Sure.
And now I can feel it. Like when a guy is vulnerable with me, I'm able to give comfort, and then they're more vulnerable, and I'm like, oh, even with my dad. My relationship with my dad, and it's funny because the better it's getting with my dad, the better my relationships with men are getting. I softened. I became more loving.
Well, that's where it starts, right? Because then your whole lens changes. So you're interpreting things differently, and you're interpreting behaviors. You know,
I just feel more loving, so it's just... There's no way it's not going to be more loving because it's just how I feel inside. And so to have, like... And so I really feel... I have a joke about the guys and the whole... Like, we tell them. This whole idea, like, you know, we don't have any feelings, don't be sensitive, don't be this, don't be that.
Don't be soft, yeah. I mean, luckily in my own life I had good examples. My dad is soft and gentle.
It's great.
You know, my parents are together and very loving, and, you know, I had great role models in that regard. But, yeah, so I did struggle, I think, more so with the business.
How do I navigate without losing who I am and losing my integrity?
Yeah.
And, or ending up, like we said, faking that you're aggressive and then having an aggressive thing, and you're like, how the hell did I get here? Right. That's worse than even not getting anything, I think.
I agree.
To build all this success on, I think people really, when they split from their true self.
Yeah.
Which is what fame kind of is, if you think about it. That's why they say fame goes to your head, because it's not in your heart anymore.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm proud that like pretty much the trajectory of my career has been, you know, gradual, but satisfying and deliberate and thoughtful. Not that you always have the answer or that you always know like the next step, but I try to just be mindful of like how I'm proceeding, you know, and yeah, so it's worked out nicely, and I feel like I'm at a nice place in life and in my career now.
I'm so psyched! Yes! Was it, I get knocked down, but I get up again. I was thinking the whole time, like, as long as you don't quit, like, maybe something, you know, you don't quit and you start, and you learn a little bit about yourself, and you think, like, because I really feel like the world, and I keep saying this, and nobody's told me I was crazy, and the less people tell me I'm crazy, the stronger I'm feeling about saying it.
Right.
The idea that there's some sort of aversion to love and gentleness and actually feeling feelings, like being able to tolerate feelings.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We're not, usually people yell at you, stop it, do, you know, or being able to tolerate, like, sticking up for yourself. Sometimes you have to say it like 4 times in the same voice, over and over again to somebody, and then finally, and having the compassion that, like, all right, the models work this way for so long. Mm-hmm. I don't expect them to see how I'm doing it differently yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to just keep laying it out for them.
That's right. And also to seek out people that are on that same
But they're all out there. And sometimes they don't even know they're out there. Like, look at you called everybody for that show.
That's right.
Sometimes you got to be the leader, too.
That's true. Yeah, nice to balance those two roles, too. Sometimes it's nice to follow and just be there, but sometimes it is nice to lead.
Well, if you want to get stuff done...
True.
Having a middleman who might be doing drugs or trying to give a deal to somebody else. That used to happen. You have, like, managers and agents, and they're like... They don't get you the deal because they're trying to get it for somebody else, and you're like, what?
Right.
That's like a conflict of interest. You can't do that. Ted, I'm so glad you rode your bike and came over here.
Thank you so
I had to push you.
You did, but I'm glad you did.
I was like, come on, Ted.
Yeah, it wasn't, believe me, I was never trying to get out of it.
Business.
I was trying to make it fit, and today it fit.
I love it. I'm so happy that you came. I'm going to have you on again after the show gets picked up. Because
I would love to.
I'm telling you right now, the Kadoozie Kast is telling you. Teacher's Lounge?
Teacher's Lounge.
It's going to get picked up by the right place, too.
Thank you.
Wherever it's supposed to be to grow.
Yeah.
All right, so Ted Alexandro on Twitter.
Yep.
What else?
TedAlexandro.com.
TedAlexandro.com, and he play all the clubs in the city all the time still, right?
I'm around.
Yeah, he's
you
around.
Can find me.
Follow him. He's awesome. He goes slow.
That's right.
So all you guys out there that like to go slow, Ted does it. All right, that's another episode of the Kadoozie Kast, and we're out.